Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a really foundational idea, something that, ripples through history and we think speaks directly to how you approach your own mission.
Yeah, it's the call to bless the nations, starting way back with Abraham.
Exactly. And it's amazing how this ancient idea still holds so much weight.
It really does. And for you listening, as you're kind of navigating your own work, your own life, this deep dive offers a really compelling way to look at your impact.
Absolutely. We've been digging into material that traces this whole call, from Abraham himself, then through Israel's story, the church emerging.
And right up to how you can actually live this blessing idea today. It's quite a sweep. Ancient Mesopotamia to, well, right now.
Right. And the main goal here really for you is to get beyond just understanding it and to pull out some actionable wisdom.
Yeah, maybe a fresh perspective on how your own skills, your values, the stuff you do every day, how that can all feed into something bigger.
A positive global influence, moving beyond just personal gain, becoming a real conduit for blessing, as the source puts it.
It makes you ask, doesn't it? What if your own professional mission, what you're really trying to do, what if that actually echoes this timeless call to Abraham?
That's the core question. Okay, let's really get into it, starting right at the beginning. Abraham's foundational call.
Yeah, the context is pretty key. You've got ancient Mesopotamia,
Yeah.
this, cradle of civilization.
Right, complex world back then.
Definitely. And then one person, Abram, gets this, what the source calls a truly transformative calling. Not just about him personally.
No, it had huge implications. The call itself, it wasn't just be great, it was be a conduit of blessing for all nations. That's the phrase used.
And Genesis 12.13 lays it out. I'll make you a great nation, I'll bless you. And then the kicker, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you.
That last bit, all peoples on earth, the scale is just, wow.
And if you break down the promises made to Abram, who becomes Abraham, there are three main ones.
A great nation. Right.
Check. A great name.
Yep.
And then this third one, being a blessing to the world. That global aspect is baked right in. It really challenges the idea that blessing is, zero sum.
Totally. And just think about what he had to do. Leave everything. Country, relatives, his father's house.
Or somewhere he didn't even know.
Right. The source calls it a profound leap of faith. It wasn't just moving house. It was like a complete reset.
And it's interesting how the source frames Abraham as a kind of prototype visionary leader.
How so?
Well, his focus wasn't just building his own thing, but channeling blessing outward, globally. It kind of makes you rethink what leadership or success even means today, doesn't it?
It really does. Are we about accumulating or contributing? And the source stresses where the blessing comes from.
Right. It originates with God. God's I will. That's the quote. It's not just about human effort or being good enough.
It's more like participating in something God's already doing.
Exactly. And that whole story, Abraham's call, becomes this powerful symbol for, well, anyone trusting in a future they can't see.
Challenging that idea that we have to be totally self-sufficient. It points to a different way.
Yeah, a different path to maybe finding significance.
Okay, so that's Abraham. Monumental call. Now, the focus shifts in our sources to his descendants, to Israel. How did they carry this promise forward?
Well, as Abraham's descendants, they inherited the promise, naturally. But their specific job, their mandate, was to manifest God's glory to the nations around them.
To show what God was like.
Pretty much. Exodus 19 calls them a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. Isaiah 49 says they're to be a light for the Gentiles. Their whole identity was meant to be outward-looking.
So they're supposed to live out things like justice, righteousness, mercy, so other people would see it.
That was the idea, a living demonstration. But Israel's story is also a bit of a warning.
How so?
The source points out they often stumbled when their focus shifted inward, when their worship wasn't, authentic.
Okay, and you can see parallels maybe in our own work lives. Like our core integrity affects our influence.
Absolutely. It's not just the tasks, but the character behind them. The source talks about worship as a transformative witness for Israel. It wasn't just temple rituals. It was supposed to soak into daily life, into how society worked, fairness, justice, how they treated people.
Right. And you're saying this connects back to Abraham's promise being for all nations.
Yeah. The promise given through Israel was always meant to reach beyond Israel. It wasn't supposed to be kept to themselves. It was a blessing meant to be shared.
But as we know, it wasn't always smooth sailing. The sources talk about Israel's failures too, and then this prophetic hope that came later. What went wrong?
Well, the source mentions this recurring issue of self-absorption. They'd turn inward, focus on their own survival or status, and kind of forget the bigger mission.
Neglecting that outward call.
Exactly. And the consequence mentioned is exile, which the source actually calls divine correction.
Strong words, like a wake-up call.
Sort of.
Yeah.
A painful chance to regroup and remember their purpose. And it's during that tough time that this powerful prophetic hope starts to surface.
Okay, looking ahead to a figure, a servant, who would perfectly live out Israel's mission. Be that light to the nations properly. Isaiah 49, again, is key here.
And that servant, for Christians, points directly to Jesus Christ.
Right. As the one who fulfilled that promise, fulfilling Abraham's covenant too, and really opening up that blessing to literally every nation. No more ethnic boundaries.
Which leads us naturally to the church then. How does the church, the community of believers, step into this ongoing story?
Well, the source explains that the church inherits Abraham's calling through Christ. Believers become spiritual descendants, like Paul says in Galatians. It's about faith, not bloodline anymore.
So the new covenant really widens the whole thing. God's kingdom expands.
Precisely. And the church takes on this role as a global light, reflecting God's character, love, justice, mercy, hopefully, to all corners of the earth.
And that's where the Great Commission fits in, right? Matthew 28, go make disciples of all nations.
It's a direct echo of the promise to Abraham, but now it's an explicit command.
Who do it. And crucially, it's not just human effort. Acts 1.8 talks about the Holy Spirit's power enabling this, equipping the church to be witnesses everywhere, to the ends of the earth.
It's a divinely empowered mission. And the source also mentions believers being a royal priesthood, 1 Peter 2.9.
Yeah, that idea of actively representing God in how we live day to day, it's central to being a blessing.
Okay, so we've traced this call from Abraham through Israel, through Christ to the church. Now, the big question, how do we, listening right now, actually live this out? Practically. The source has some concrete ideas.
It does. First step, identify your nations.
Not countries, necessarily.
Not necessarily. More like, who are the communities you actually interact with and can influence? Your team at work, your customers, maybe local groups.
Like mapping your stakeholders, almost?
Kinda, yeah. Knowing your sphere. Then second, define your blessing. What unique stuff do you bring? Skills, resources, ideas?
Yeah.
How can those things create positive change for those nations you identified?
So what's your unique value proposition, but framed as a blessing?
You could put it that way. Then number 3 is act with intent. Purpose has to get baked into your decisions, your planning, how you lead.
Not just wishful thinking.
Right. The source asks, does this project actually help us serve our communities? Does it reflect the blessing we want to bring? Good check questions.
And then, importantly, measure your influence.
Yeah.
You need to actually track the impact, right?
Mm-hmm. Get beyond just feeling good about it. Look at metrics, feedback assessments. It connects to things like CSR, but maybe with a deeper why, shared value, perhaps.
I liked the point about hospitality as mission, thinking about Abraham welcoming those visitors.
Yeah, just being welcoming, inclusive. How can we do that in our workplaces, our communities? It's a practical expression of God's love.
Simple things, maybe. How you greet a new person.
Exactly. And then there's vocational witness.
Yeah.
Seeing your actual job, your career, as a place to show integrity, excellence, a spirit of service. Colossians 3.23 gets mentioned, doing work as for the Lord.
Can my work serve something higher than just a paycheck?
That's the question. The source also mentions global engagement. Even if your daily life is local, you can still connect globally.
Supporting missions, praying, cross-cultural stuff.
Right. Recognizing the blessing is worldwide. And finally, maybe the foundation, worship as a way of life.
Beyond Sunday mornings.
Way beyond. Into our ethics, our compassion, how we pursue justice every day. Romans 12.1, our whole lives is an act of worship. Do our actions line up with the character we claim?
Wow, okay. So that's a lot of practical stuff. And the source really brings it home with a direct challenge to us, the listeners.
Yeah, it basically asks, are you going to embrace this? Move beyond just, transactional stuff towards transformational impact.
It makes you stop and think, is my life, my work, actually radiating something positive? Are there ripples of blessing coming from what I do?
And thinking about legacy, too. What's it going to be beyond the balance sheet? Who are your nations that you can reach?
So the source suggests some actionable steps.
Really reflect, what does being a blessing mean for you, right where you are? Then make a conscious choice to act on that purpose.
And act boldly, it says. Build that legacy of positive impact.
Yeah.
So wrapping this deep dive up, the main takeaway really is that this Ancient call, starting with Abraham. It's not just history, it's incredibly relevant, a powerful mandate for your life, your work right now.
And the key ideas are, you can be a channel for blessing. It starts by knowing your patch, figuring out what you uniquely offer, acting on purpose, and checking your impact.
We want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Imagine the transformation possible in your own life and out in the world if you really leaned into this timeless call.
So what's one specific step, maybe even a small one, you could take today to start answering it, to begin building that legacy of blessing? The source material we looked at has some good reflection questions if you want to go deeper.
Yeah, this deep dive, it's really just the start of exploring this.
Hopefully it's given you some good food for thought, some practical ideas to run with.